if you're like me, you've been watching the Republican presidential conversation, if you will, with increasing concern over the tone and direction it's taking, and perhaps one of the most disturbing directions that debate is taking regards immigration and the way the topic of immigration is being discussed in this country, especially under the leadership, if leadership is the right word, perhaps influence is a better word, under the influence of candidate Donald Trump. Here to talk to us now about that conversation and its implications is Lynn Tramonte, who is the Deputy Director of America's Voice and America's Voice Education Fund. These are two Washington-based immigrant advocacy groups. And Lynn, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Do you share, I assume you do, but I don't want to assume, do you share the extreme discomfort that I feel and the growing discomfort in listening to Trump talk and the way the others try to catch up with him on this topic?
Oh, I do. It feels like watching a train wreck in slow motion. And, this started back in July when Trump first made his comments about Mexicans being criminals. And I think that we all thought at some point common sense would kick in, his poll numbers would deflate, and he would go back to being a reality TV star only. But that hasn't happened, and quite frankly, I think it's extremely scary.
Yeah, and I think, what we're also seeing is some of the other candidates trying to echo him. I mean, that's the impression I get, and which is also extremely scary. You even had an incident that we've discussed on this show of Bobby Jindal refusing to repudiate the term anchor baby, even though his mother was pregnant with him when she came to this country. So maybe it would help, first of all, to explain to our audience I've already shared my opinions, but why that's a disturbing and, at least in my words, offensive term.
Okay, sure. Yeah. And I just want to point out, too, what you mentioned, this idea of Donald Trump articulating a policy that all the other candidates embrace. It's actually developing a name called the Trump effect. And it's sort of like a force field that's pulling all of them to try to agree with him on immigration policy. And it's going to make anybody who signs up with a Donald Trump immigration platform in the primary is going to be unable to compete in the general election. That's just full stop. But you said you wanted to talk about the term anchor babies, and why is that?
Yeah, and then let's go back to that. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I think Hillary Clinton put it best, that when she said they're not anchor babies, they're babies. And
right.
For the party that's supposed to, care about the Constitution and they're supposed to care about unborn children, the fact that they want to rip up the Constitution and deny citizenship to children when they're born, it's total hypocrisy.
And I think a lot of people in this debate forget that most of us, unless we're Native American by background, are the descendants of immigrants ourselves. So it's not as if being an immigrant or being a baby is a offensive thing. And I guess, when we talk about the Trump effect, now you were saying that you feel that anybody who succumbs to it and starts talking like Donald Trump can't win the general election. Are we sure about that?
Yeah, I mean, we are, because, the Latino electorate, this may not be their top issue. The economy and education are all top issues, but immigration is sort of like a gut check issue. Is it okay? Do you think it's okay that I'm here or not? And so when a candidate stakes out a really restrictionist position on immigration in the primary, as we saw with Mitt Romney, they just can't reinvent themselves when it comes time to the general election. And last time around, it was about 40 that Republicans needed about 40% of the Latino vote nationwide. That was the target in order to be able to win the presidency, given where they stood with the other groups, white women and et cetera. This time, with the growth of the Latino electorate, it's actually more like somewhere between 42 and 47%. and it's just, it's just surely impossible to think that any Republican candidate could get that much support from the Latino community if they spent, 15, 16 months demonizing Latinos in the run-up to the general election.
Well, we're talking with Lynn Tramonte, the Deputy Director of America's Voice and America's Voice Education Fund. So you're saying that even if they try to reverse themselves once they get the nomination, whoever the nominee turns out to be, that it may be too late to reverse that impact they've had. I guess what I would ask you then also, because this is the part I think that bothers me maybe even more than the political part, is that I feel as if every time Trump opens his mouth on this issue, or one of his copycats does, that it's injecting more poison, more venom into the American bloodstream when it comes to Hispanics or immigrants of any kind. I find that it's kind of reflecting and nurturing a kind of culture of hate and prejudice. Am I wrong to be worried about that?
No. He's taking us backwards. He says he doesn't have time to be politically correct. It's not being politically correct. It's just treating people like human beings. And I agree with you. I think that the things he says about women and immigrants and veterans, and the fact that people think it's a joke or funny or they believe it is highly disturbing. Just yesterday, a homeless man was attacked in Boston because he was Hispanic, and the two men who did it said that they mentioned Donald Trump when they were talking to the police about why they did it. They said that Trump was right; these people have got to go. That's the consequence. There are consequences to this hateful rhetoric. It's not entertainment. It's actually having real consequences.
And when Donald Trump was asked about that hate crime, where he was cited as the inspiration, he was very flippant about it, I would say. He said he hadn't heard about the attack, in so many words. He added that it would be a shame, quote unquote, if it happened. And then he immediately dropped that and said, I will say the people that are following me are very passionate. They love this country. They want this country to be great again, but they are very passionate. It's almost as if, I don't want to say he was defending them, but he certainly wasn't condemning what they did, in my mind, the way he needs to do that.
Yeah, it's hard to interpret his comments anyway, other than, those crazy kids, they're just so passionate, sort of deflecting and brushing it off. And this is a man who's in the hospital still because his nose was broken and he was beaten so severely. It's absolutely disgusting. And I agree with you when I read what he said, what Trump said in response. I was, even though I try not to be shocked when Donald Trump says something, I still was shocked again because he just keeps hitting new levels of lows.
It's kind of hard not to be, I guess. We're talking with Lynn Tramonte of America's Voice, and he also, I don't know if you saw Donald Trump on the Bill O'Reilly show, but this is just me, I guess, but it's a dark day when the voice of sanity in a conversation belongs to Bill O'Reilly. Mm-hmm. But O'Reilly, did you see that conversation with Trump?
I didn't, but you're the second person who's brought this up with me. Yeah, I didn't actually watch it though.
Yeah, O'Reilly talked about the 14th Amendment. The 14th Amendment says if you're born here, you're an American and you can't kick Americans out. And Trump's answer is many lawyers are saying that's not the way it is. They're saying it's not going to hold up in court. It makes no sense. I don't think they have American citizenship. And if you speak to some very, very good lawyers, and I know some will disagree, but many agree with me, you're going to find they do not have American citizenship. And then he used the offensive term. I'd much rather find out whether anchor babies are actually citizens. And O'Reilly said, why don't you test it now? You should do it tomorrow. And Trump just hemmed and hawed. So what do we do? Let me ask you this question, Lynn Tramonte. For those of us who are kind of repelled by Donald Trump and his the way he talks about people who are not born in this country. Is there anything we can do besides watch in horror as he continues to do this? Is there any way to make our feelings known on this subject?
Oh, yeah, I think there are. I mean, one is using every muscle we have to find people who are not registered to vote and get them registered. We have a lot of campaigns going on that are working to help immigrants become naturalized citizens. So, our most potent response is our political response, and making sure that people show up at the ballot box to communicate their views on candidates who demonize their families. But Trump has had some economic fallout because of the way he's been talking. So I think that all of those initiatives to quote unquote dump Trump from different contracts and prevent him from earning money on the backs of immigrants who he wants to deport. I think that all those victories have been really powerful and inspiring to see, and they're all initiated by, just ordinary people. Earlier, maybe it was late last week, a young man just came out of nowhere. He works at a restaurant inside a Trump hotel. He decided to speak up. He made a video. He's from Mexico. He's undocumented, and he was upset about what Trump was saying, and he said he felt ashamed walking under that Trump hotel sign every day to go to work. And so he made a really powerful video saying, I'm not a criminal, I'm not a rapist, and I might have an accent, but I'm not stupid, and I know what's going on here. So we kind of see it as a David and Goliath action, but he's just one person who decided to speak up, and he's having a big impact and getting a lot of support.
At a lot of moments in American history and human history, people try to demonize the other, whoever they define the other to be, in order to win support. It's called demagoguery. I'm sorry we have to live through it, but Lynn Tramonte, where can people go to learn more about your organization?
They can go to the web, americasvoice.org. They can also follow us on Twitter. It's @AmericasVoice. Thank you so much.
Great. Well, thank you so much for coming on the program. Lynn Tramonte, Deputy Director of America's Voice, thank you for joining us and talking to us about this important subject.
Take care. Thank you.
I'm Richard